Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on any purchase over $10. See the description below for details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. It is another huge week for the market. If you watched last week's video, you kind of know what to expect from this week. Ravnica Allegiance has had a huge impact on card pricing, and not just standard cards either. The Commander market has really heated up due to a number of cards from the new set. We're going to be looking at everything that's going on in the market in this video. Quickly before we get started though, just a fast reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to support the channel, one of which is our Patreon page. You're also going to find links to products on Amazon down below. And finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers. These are all ways to help out the channel. But as always, thank you not only to those who look at those links, but to each and every one of you. Y'all make the channel what it is. So thank you, and let's get into it. We're going to begin with the top 5 cards from standard sets that have lost value this week. Just a quick reminder, we do a companion video on Ravnica Allegiance cards, at least until they kind of settle down. And we did that a couple days ago. So if you missed it, I'll link it at the end of this video. But we're not going to talk about those cards in today's episode. Number 5, Angrath, the Flame Chain, down 54 cents to $12.95. Well, this card got pretty hot leading into the release of Ravnica Allegiance. There was a lot of speculation that with the new Rakdos cards coming in, and the fact that this works really well with Spectacle, that this card actually might be able to do some cool things in Standard. Unfortunately, those Rakdos decks still haven't really taken off in the meta. It's still early, things could change, but as of right now, people are starting to lose confidence in those decks and this card. Number 4, Nicol Bolas, the Ravager, down 55 cents to $21.13. Now, I don't think a lot of people had high expectations for this card going into this particular meta, just based on what we were seeing from previews from Ravnica Allegiance. However, people weren't ready to sell off their copies yet either. Now that we're a couple weeks into the meta, I think more people are willing to let go of this card. Number 3, Resplendent Angel, down 64 cents to $13.52. Another card that I don't think folks had a lot of high hopes for going into the season. However, there was a chance that Angel decks could see a little bit of a revival. There are Angel decks kicking around out there, but as of yet, it hasn't happened. If it doesn't happen soon, this card will lose a lot more value. Doom Whisperer is here at number 2, down 67 cents to $10.26. Another really solid card that's just not performing very well right now in the standard meta. This is a great commander card though, which is why the price is holding a little better than some of the other cards we're talking about today. But you'll notice that you're not going to see this all that often in the big top 8 decks, if at all anymore. It's still out there, and you will still find it in some decks here or there, but one of the big losses generally for this card is the fact that the Golgari midrange deck has turned into the Sultai midrange deck, and now that you have Hydroid Krasis coming in, it's kind of pushing this card out. Not all versions of Golgari were running this to begin with. Now you don't really see it at all in the Sultai copies of these decks. Number 1, Rekindling Phoenix, down 71 cents to $21.77. Another card that was the darling of the standard meta for many seasons. Just not seeing all that much play right now. It's not gone. You'll still find this in a number of aggro decks out there. However, a lot of those red aggro decks are trying to go smaller now, and this card does get disrupted pretty badly by things like Lava Coil. Because of that, it's on the way down, and it could lose more value unless something changes quickly. Alright, let's move on to the top 5 cards from standard sets that have gained value this week. Number 5 is Primal Amulet, up 79 cents to $3.79. This card got hot in the past week because there's a new deck out there in Standard, which is starting to put up some nice results. It's called Temur Reclamation. It runs a couple copies of this typically in the main. In fact, there was a copy of this deck that came in 10th place at the Star City Games Team Open last weekend. Even though it was a team tournament combined with Modern and Legacy, and it wasn't even a top 8 finish, a lot of people are looking at this deck because it just looks like a lot of fun. I think a lot of folks will want to play this at Friday Night Magic, if nothing else. Number 4, Watery Grave from Guilds of Ravnica goes up 86 cents to $9.47. Of course, Shocklands have been hot as everybody's been buying into new standard builds. You'll find this in Sultai Midrange, Esper Control, Esper Midrange, all very popular decks right now. Not to mention the play this season Modern and some big decks like Grixis Death Shadow as well. Number 3, Elenda the Dusk Rose goes up $1.12 to $15.99. Leading into the standard season, a lot of people were speculating that maybe this card could do something in Mardu Aristocrats decks. Those decks aren't doing very well right now in the standard meta, at least not yet, and the ones that are kicking around are not running this card because it is very fragile, a 1/1 for 4. So why is this card going up in value? Because of Commander, and in particular because of its interaction with Teysa Karlov. If you watched last week's video, you know Teysa Karlov played a really big role in a lot of the cards that were going up in value. This week is no different. We're going to be talking about her a lot again today. Number 2, Thief of Sanity, up $1.21 to $3.66. This card is heating up a little bit due to its play in a couple big standard decks right now. As per Control, sometimes you'll find up to 4 of these in the sideboard of certain builds, and also as per Midrange, many times you'll find 4 copies in the main of those decks. If this continues to see play, this card could go up quite a bit in the coming weeks. And number 1 is Circuitous Route, going up $1.50 to $2.40. The first week of the standard meta, we saw these 4-color gate decks creep in. They weren't necessarily putting up big top 8 finishes or anything like that, but they were doing relatively well in some big tournaments. In week 2, that did continue, and we also saw a variant of those decks called Nexus of Gates, which basically took some of the elements of those Gates decks and combined them with a Nexus of Fate deck. That actually did pretty well, coming in 4th place at the Star City Games Classic last weekend. Because of that, a lot of people are thinking of building those decks, and this card heats up quite a bit. Alright, let's move on to the top 5 modern legal cards that have lost value this week. You're still going to see some influence here from Ultimate Masters reprints. Coming in at number 5 is Noble Hierarch from Conflux, down $1.17 to $60.04. Of course, this was reprinted as a rare in Ultimate Masters, making the card a little softer than it has been in quite some time, but it's still very expensive, and it's because it's in so many key decks. In Modern, you'll find this in things like Bant Spirits and Humans. Legacy, you'll find this in Maverick. Vintage Survival decks will run these. Overall, this is still going to be a highly sought-after card. Number 4, Sword of Feast and Famine, down $1.18 to $33.05. This is the Mirrodin Besieged version this time. And this card is not necessarily seeing a lot of competitive play. Sometimes you might find a copy of this in the sideboard of Esper Stoneblade and Legacy. But this is really a card that's been hot because of Commander, especially since Najeela came out with Battlebound a number of months ago. It snaps back a little bit this week, though. Number 3 is Karn Liberated from Modern Masters 2015. Down $1.42 to $67.19. This was reprinted as a Mythic Rare in Ultimate Masters, again softening up a very popular card. And this, of course, is going to be found in Tron builds. Number 2, Tarmogoyf. 2 versions here. The first one is the new reprint from Ultimate Masters, of course at Mythic, down $1.49 to $51.18. And the other one is Modern Masters 2015, down $161 to $56.98. So I've been saying over the last couple weeks that these Goyfs are just trying to find their price point off that most recent reprinting. And that's basically what you're seeing here, is they're starting to settle in maybe to the low to mid 50 price points for the most part. That could be a little different for cards like the Future Sight version, which of course is unique and harder to find in good condition, or even the first Modern Masters version might be slightly higher than these other ones, but for the most part, I think this is what you're going to be looking at for pricing for Goyf for a while. Now, it's still a great card. It's in a lot of big decks like Jund, Golgari Midrange and Modern, Temur Delver and Legacy, Sultai Midrange and Vintage, and a lot more. Number 1 is Mox Opal from Scars of Mirrodin, down $2.43 to $92.49. It's not too surprising on one hand to see this card go down just a little bit because of the Krark Clan Ironworks banning a couple weeks ago. When that card was banned in Modern, the KCI deck, of course, became virtually unplayable, and that deck did run Mox Opal, so there's one less competitive deck out there running the card, so okay. However, keep this in mind, this card is in a lot of huge decks. Whir of Invention decks, which are very hot right now, Affinity, Hardened Scales Affinity, Lantern Control, other Modern Legacy and Vintage builds too. Maybe it loses a little more value, but I would expect it to stabilize quickly, and then it will continue to climb until someday we see a reprinting, which I feel like has to be kind of sooner than later at this point. Alright, let's move on to the top 10 modern legal cards that have gained value this week, and much like last week, we're going to do top 10 again because there's so much happening in the market. Now, these cards aren't all moving because of Modern, many of them are, but a lot of them are moving because of Commander too. You'll see that once we get into the list. Number 10, though, is moving because of Modern. It's Gemstone Mine, going up $2.52 to $14.85. This is the Time Spiral version, and this card's heating up because of Amulet Titan. This is not the only card on our list today that is moving from that deck. Ever since the KCI ban, that deck looks even better. It's always been a good deck, but it's put up some really strong results in the last couple weeks, and I expect that to continue. This card is typically found as a 4-of in those builds, and it's actually in some other big decks too, like Dredge, even though it's usually only a 1-of there. Number 9, Death Shadow from World Wake goes up 335 to 1549. The Grixis Death Shadow decks have been very strong for a long time. They feel like they're getting even better ever since KCI got banned. So, again, a deck that has always been great, just has been putting up better results in the last couple weeks even. So, will that trend continue? I guess time will tell, but regardless, this was an undervalued card for a little while now. Not too surprised to see it spike up here. And not only are the Grixis Death Shadow decks pretty good in Modern, sometimes you'll find other variants of that deck as well. And even occasionally, a Legacy or Vintage variant of that deck shows up and does okay. So this is a card to watch long term for sure. Number 8 is 1,000 Year Elixir. 2 copies to talk about this week. Lorwyn going up 345 to 1125. Commander 2013 going up 346 to 1099. And this is a card that's on here because of Commander, and in particular due to its interaction with a new card, Prime Speaker Vannifar. Number 7, Amulet of Vigor goes up 358 to 2940, another key part of those Amulet Titan decks. This card feels like it's overdue for a reprinting as well, but with those decks being successful now, I could see this card going up quite a bit in the coming weeks. Number 6, Jace the Mind Sculptor goes up 445 to 11060. This is the one from World Wake. Although all the Jaces are moving at least a little bit, this was the only one moving enough to make our list today. But generally, Jace is just a hot card and was actually a little undervalued, believe it or not, considering the price point. The card has been soft since the Masters 25 reprinting, but enough time has passed now that people are willing to pay more for the card, and that's what you're seeing here. This shows up in so many key decks. Azorius Control in Modern might be the most popular right now, but it's in so many other Modern, Legacy, and Vintage decks that this card could go up some more before it stabilizes. Although this particular version did have a pretty big spike this week, so I wouldn't be shocked to see snapback next week. Number 5, Athreos God of Passage goes up $4.90 to $33. Another card moving because of Commander, and another card moving because of Teysa Karlov. Number 4, there she is. Teysa Orzhov Scion. This is going up $8.24 to $12.90. This is from Guild Pact. Now, of course, you can guess why this is going up because of Commander and because of Teysa Karlov. However, one thing I want to point out, this card is getting reprinted in foil with new art in the upcoming Orzhov Guild Kit. So a lot more copies are going to get out there. Now, I really like this original art, and I do think a lot of players might still want to gravitate towards this original copy of the card. But once the new copy starts to hit the marketplace, I would expect this to go down. Number 3 is another card moving because of Amulet Titan. This is Azusa, Lost But Seeking. Masters 25 going up $7.34 to $35. Champions of Kamigawa going up $12.67 this week to $42.50. Number 2, Surgical Extraction. 2 copies here. New Phyrexia going up $2.38 to $44.99. Modern Masters 2015 going up $13.61 to $53.99. Okay, so this card got soft for like a week because of the KCI banning, as people thought, okay, maybe I won't need as many copies in my sideboard since KCI won't be around. However, there's so many other reasons to play this card, like Dredge, and maybe most importantly now, Phoenix decks. Phoenix decks have really heated up, and people are definitely wanting to prepare for those type of builds, and this is a great way to do it. Number 1, Thrumming Stone. This card has gotten super hot, going up $23.05 to $56.55. We've talked about it over the last couple weeks. Of course, this is moving because of Commander and because of a new card as well. This time it's Persistent Petitioners. A lot of folks trying to build some mill Commander strategies around these cards. Okay, let's move on to our Vintage Spotlight. This is where we look at some of the cards played in Legacy, Vintage, 93, 94, and also some cards that are important to the collector's market. And I will tell you, unlimited cards are heating up again this week. They've been hot. There's been a couple weeks where we haven't seen many on our list. However, they're back, and they're back in force this week. Now, the reason for that generally is just simply because they're easier to move for online sellers compared to alpha and beta. Those cards are getting very expensive. They sell slower. So if you want to trade a little bit faster in some high-end cards that are still rare, that still matter to collectors, that are still legal in 93, 94 format, unlimited is a good place to go. Because of that, you're seeing prices increase pretty dramatically on a lot of these cards. Especially this week, you're going to notice a lot of cards that have been reprinted many times. You can find cheaper copies of them, but collectors are still going back to those unlimited copies. But first, we'll start off with some cards losing value, beginning with Caracas from Eternal Masters, going down $1.72 to $29.99. Now, of course, this was reprinted in Ultimate Masters as a Mythic Rare, and I've said this before, but it feels like that most recent reprinting was basically the tipping point for this card. If I'm a Legacy or Vintage player and I need copies of this card for some reason still, well, really, they're just not that hard to find. And again, it's a very limited audience looking for them. Maybe people that play Death and Taxes or 4-Color Loam, for example, might need a copy of this, but it's banned in Commander, so it loses that whole audience. I do think this card will lose more value before it stabilizes. Next, we have Back to Basics from Urza Saga. This is going down $2.21 to $40.40. Very similar story here, but this was reprinted in Ultimate Masters as a rare, so there's even more copies out there. But this is a very solid Legacy card. You'll find this in a number of builds like Miracles. Not always out of the sideboard either. Many times you'll see this in the main deck. Stoneforge Mystic. This was not in Ultimate Masters, but this one's going down $3.88 to $33.64 this week. Every time we approach a banned and restricted list update, people think this might become unbanned in Modern. A lot of folks spec on it, try to pick up copies. When it doesn't happen, it goes back down, and that's what you're seeing here. Okay, now for the cards going up in value. City of Traders. This is on the reserve list. Sees a lot of Legacy play nowadays, going up $7.41 this week to $223.40. And here's the first of many unlimited cards today on our list. Lord of Atlantis up $11.44 to $88.37. Mahamoti Jin is going up $12.38 to $86.58 from Unlimited. Mana Drain. This is not in Unlimited, but it's in Iconic Masters and Legends. Iconic Masters going up $4.39 to $64.98. Legends going up $15.86 to $167.81. Great vintage and commander card that has been pretty hot recently. Demonic Hordes from Unlimited. Now this is on the reserve list, but it did get a reprinting and revised if you're looking for a cheaper copy. This is going up $16.91 this week to $49.48. Earthquake from Unlimited up $17.02 to $63.75. Illusionary Mask from Unlimited. This is on the reserve list, up $18.15 to $178.73. Word of Command from Unlimited, also on the reserve list, up $20 to $179.99. Another break from Unlimited. This is the Arabian Nights Mountain, going up $12.40 to $149. Of course, the story behind this was they meant to pull this card before production, and they didn't do it, so this is the only basic land that you can find in Arabian Nights. Over time, these cards have become more and more coveted because of their uniqueness. Has a pretty big spike this week. Nightmare from Unlimited goes up $24.89 to $74.17. Wrath of God from Unlimited goes up $30.60 to $99. Mind Twist from Unlimited goes up $53.98 to $183.97. But you can't guess what set this card came from. Time Vault from Unlimited. This is on the reserve list. It's going up $90.20 this week to $974.50. The trend continues. It's value from Unlimited. Of course, this is on the reserve list, but the dual lands were reprinted and revised if you're looking for cheaper copies, although they are still very expensive. This one, however, is going up $94.49 this week to $749.99. Ancestral Recall, one of the Power 9 from Unlimited, of course, on the reserve list, going up $350.02 this week to $2,149.97. Nothing unusual here. There's just some higher grade copies on the marketplace this week, which bumped the price a little. And the same is true for this Mox Ruby from Unlimited, also on the reserve list, of course, up $576.31 this week to $2,299.99. Okay, it's time for our Commander Spotlight. So much to talk about with Commander right now. The format is super hot. A lot of the new cards, of course, are influencing prices of a lot of old cards. This might be the biggest Commander Spotlight I ever did. Alright, I'm going to try to go fast. Last Chance of $1.14 to $9. This is the Portal version of the card. And it's just a cool Commander card that's been kind of hot recently. You'll see people play this sometimes with like Chance for Glory and Final Fortune and then some various ways to prevent themselves from losing the game. Black Market. This is the Commander 2015 version. A lot of copies of this were hot last week. This one remains hot, going up $1.16 to $8.75. Of course, this is going to play with Teysa Karlov. Vampiric Tutor from Visions this time goes up $1.22 to $49.45. The Eternal Masters copy's been hot recently, but now the Visions one is going up too. And it's just a solid Commander card. I mean, Tutors always are. And as you can imagine with Teysa out there, black and white are popular colors right now. Teferi's Protection from Commander 2017. Very popular card in a number of builds, going up $1.28 to $36.04. Oracle of Moldea going up $1.29 to $32.99. Another card that feels like it's very overdue for a reprint in some kind of supplemental product or something like that. Maybe we'll see it this year. But this card has been hot ever since the Nature's Vengeance Commander 2018 deck came out a number of months ago. Blood Artist from Commander 2017. The original version was going up a little bit too this week, but not quite $1, so I didn't bother putting it on here. But this one is going up $1.31 to $5.16. I bet you can guess why. Teysa Karlov. Anointed Procession up $1.38 to $11. Yup, you guessed it, another card that's going to play with Teysa. Living End remains hot, goes up $1.70 to $23.47. This card has been strong ever since we found out about Electro Dominance and Ravnica Allegiance. Now, from a commander point of view, suspend cards in general will interact very well with Electro Dominance. Because of that, a lot of commander players have been trying to brew around the card a little bit. Secondly, though, in Modern, there have been some Modern brews with Electro Dominance. But if one is going to get there, I think your best bet is the already existing As Foretold Living End deck just playing Electro Dominance. And because of that, Living End is still going up, and actually As Foretold went up just a little bit this week too. We'll have to see if that pans out. If it does, you never know what could happen with a card like this. If it doesn't, I would expect things to calm down relatively quickly, but commander players will always have some interest in these type of combos. Sliver Legion. Slivers are actually pretty hot this week. This one goes up $1.73 to $51.74. Craterhoof Behemoth from Avacyn Restored goes up $1.93 to $30, and this card remains hot too a second week in a row due to its interaction in Commander with Nikya of the Old Ways. A lot of people trying to build these big mana decks around this new card. This is still a card that appears sometimes in Legacy Elves decks too. Sliver Queen. Told you slivers were hot. This is going up $2.03 this week to $64.09. This one is on the reserve list. And Sliver Hive Lord going up $2.32 to $17.07. Skull Clamp. Okay, 3 copies were going up more than $1 this week, and those are Commander 2014 up $1.28 to $4.26. Commander Anthology up $1.57 to $5.98. Commander 2015 up $2.35 to $4.85. Originally, this card got hot because of its interaction with Teysa Karlov, and as a matter of fact, there was a Game Nights episode a couple weeks ago where one of the players was playing a Teysa deck, and we saw some really cool interactions with Skull Clamp, so that drew a lot of attention to the card. Since then, though, somebody has decided to buy out as many of these as they can, and that has pushed the price point up quite a bit as well. Selvala Heart of the Wilds. This one is going up $2.62 to $56.25. This card has been very hot recently, but it is even hotter now because of Nikya. Temporal Manipulation from Portal Second Age goes up $2.74 to $76.70. This was reprinted as a Mythic Rare in Ultimate Masters. When that happened, this card did soften up, but now it's quickly bouncing back as people are discovering this original version of the card again. And it's just a cool redundancy, kind of anyway, to have in Commander. It's not exactly the same as Time Warp because it doesn't target, but it's pretty close. Great Oak Guardian. 2 copies here. Commander 2015 going up $1.51 to $6.49. Commander Anthology going up $2.92 to $7.70. Another card in Commander that plays well with Prime Speaker Vannifar. Cold Storage. This is from Tempest. It's never been reprinted, but it's not on the reserve list. Going up $3.01 this week to $8.95. And this was hot last week as well because of its interaction most recently with Rakdos the Showstopper. Although this card has seen play in other Commander decks in the past, it's Rakdos which is really heating it up this week. Timna the Weaver, and I should point out this is from Commander 2016, only available in foil, going up $3.51 this week to $18.95. And again, another card that interacts very well with Teysa. Gate 2 Phyrexia. This is from Antiquities, and it is a reserve list card going up $3.51 to $35.98. Guess what? Another card that's good with Teysa. Vindictive Lich. Here we go again, up $4.94 to $10.48. Another card for your Teysa deck. Evacuation. This is the Duels of the Planeswalkers version of the card going up $5 to $7.43. Now, overall, this is a pretty cool card, but this is market manipulation. There's not typically all that many copies of this particular variant of the card in the marketplace at any given time, and somebody listed a few copies at a very high price that bumped the average price. That's what you're seeing here. Now, it might not have been malicious market manipulation. They may have not have known what the card was worth, or perhaps they're just trying to get an offer, but it did skew the average value, so just be careful with this one. Sower of Discord goes up 609 this week to 1225. This does see play in some Teysa builds. It also sees play in Xantcha builds, which have been popular recently too. Mana Crypt from Eternal Masters goes up 825 to 179.99. Ever since we found out that this card was not being reprinted in Ultimate Masters, it has really heated up. Great vintage card, great commander card. I do think it's going to go up more before it stabilizes. Leviathan from the Dark goes up 931 to 1674. This isn't a huge commander card, but the price jump on this particular version of the card was so high, I just wanted to include it here. It does show up in some commander decks. However, there are reprints if you want cheaper copies of it. This is probably a buyout, but I just thought it was interesting. Well, you can't have a market watch nowadays without Expropriate being on here. Up 1605 this week to 5625. This card is just out of control. Now, a couple weeks ago, it was on the Game Nights episode that I mentioned earlier. Set up the win, and it just looked amazing there. So if there were players that didn't know about the card up until that point, they definitely learned about it if they watched that video. Aside from that, it gets mentioned all the time on the Command Zone podcast. It's just a solid card in a lot of builds. Alright, with that being said, that is the market watch for this week. Now we're going to be back on Monday with a look at the tournament results from this weekend with a special focus on the cards from Ravnica Allegiance. And even though I don't talk about pricing in those videos, if you are somebody that likes to watch the market, those are good videos to watch because you get a heads up as to what cards might be going up later in the week based on their performance. So I would recommend that you check those out. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon and have a great day.